Hey folks, and welcome to Mind Litter's 10 Things You May Not Know About the 1980 John Landis film, The Blues Brothers. Number 1. John Landis was already riding high on the success of Animal House when he stepped in to direct The Blues Brothers, but nothing prepared him for the sheer scale of this production, especially with John Belushi's habit of wandering off set and Dan Aykroyd's undying devotion to capturing authenticity at all costs. Landis juggled big stunt sequences, musical legends, and comedic improvisation all at once, managing to wrangle a massive shoot into a finished film that burst with chaotic energy. It's wild to think that The Blues Brothers was actually the very first feature-length movie to come from Saturday Night Live. Jake and Elwood began as a simple musical sketch on SNL, and suddenly they were racing through the streets of Chicago in sheer Blues Brothers style. Their leap from late-night TV to the big screen paved the way for future SNL-born films, but at the time nothing like it had yet been attempted. Despite its modest origins, the movie's initial $12 million budget blew up to more than $27 million by the time they were finished. Filming explosive chase scenes on closed city streets wasn't cheap, nor was bringing in a parade of iconic R&B stars for show-stopping numbers. Add to that Belushi's unpredictable schedule and the rumored on-set so-called party fund, and it's no surprise that costs soared as high as they did. Number 2. John Belushi was notorious for his restless energy, which sometimes led to bizarre vanishings during filming. One night, he wandered off set and ended up at a random house in the neighborhood. The residents inside, starstruck at finding him on their doorstep, not only welcomed him in but let him raid their fridge before he dozed off on their couch. The next morning, his co-star Dan Aykroyd finally tracked him down, amazed by the odd situation yet not surprised by Belushi's delirious journey. He was also known for partying well into the early morning hours, oddly contributing to his manic spirit that made his comedy so electrifying. Belushi managed to power through multiple shoots and rehearsals with minimal sleep. His co-stars remarked how he often seemed barely awake most of the time during working hours, but as soon as the cameras rolled, he immediately sprang back to life with full energy and focus. In fact, a little too much energy, some could say. Despite late-night escapades and exhaustion, Belushi even performed most of his own physically demanding stunts. Whether it was a wild dance routine or a stunt involving a jump, flip, or a tumble, he threw himself into it wholeheartedly, and sometimes quite literally. He wound up with a number of mostly minor injuries, with the worst being a knee injury that required medical attention, but injuries only slowed him down momentarily as he always bounced right back, driven by the adrenaline and an intense drive that fueled the whole production. Number 3. Filming the chaotic mall chase at the abandoned Dixie Square Mall in Harvey, Illinois was a monumental effort. The building had been shut down for years, so the production team painstakingly worked to make it look like a thriving shopping center once again. They spent over $1 million on stage merchandise and detailed store fixtures alone, only to have them smashed by police cars and the unstoppable Bluesmobile careening down the aisles. For Aykroyd, this elaborate automotive escapade was his favorite stunt sequence in the entire film. He reveled in seeing the old Dodge Monaco skid around corners, plow through displays, and smash racks of newly stocked goods, all played to comedic perfection. The sheer precision of the destruction captured both the humor and the rebellious spirit that defined the Blues Brothers. Although the mall was temporarily partially renovated for the shoot, it was in shambles by the time production wrapped, and it remained abandoned and sat further deteriorating for decades after. It became something of a cult landmark among fans, but ultimately, Dixie Square Mall was finally demolished in 2012, closing the curtain on one of the film's most iconic and lovingly destructive set locations. Number 4. Aykroyd was so devoted to the spirit of Chicago that he named his character Elwood after the intersection of Elston and Wood in the city. For him, it wasn't just a witty reference, it was a way of weaving the film even deeper into the real-life streets and culture that inspired its story. Little details like this made him the driving force behind the Blues Brothers' authentic Midwestern feel. Aykroyd's unyielding dedication to authenticity, however, could test John Landis's patience at times. From insisting on technical particulars about the cars and stunts, to adding on additional explanatory scenes that Landis deemed unnecessary, of which most were cut to save on runtime. Aykroyd even thoroughly taught Belushi all about blues history, as he wanted every musical note and cameo to ring as true as possible. He dug into Chicago's music scene, consulted many musicians, and he practically lived in local clubs to capture the genuine essence of blues on camera. Beyond his passion for the music, Aykroyd was, and still is, an avid car and motorcycle enthusiast who loved talking shop as much as he did about classic vinyl. It's no wonder he cherished the film's breathtaking car stunts just as much as its soulful performances. To him, those screeching tires, roaring engines, and towering stacks of police vehicles were just as integral to the movie's spirit as any of the legendary tunes they belted out. Number 5. The Bluesmobile was a 1974 Dodge Monaco, a former Mount Prospect police cruiser that Jake and Elwood famously repurposed for their, frequently proclaimed, mission from God. The production cycled through 13 of these cars in portrayal of the Bluesmobile throughout the stunt work, but they all wore the same battered paint job and the Illinois license plate reading BDR 529, which is in reference to the Black Diamond Riders Motorcycle Club of Toronto, Canada, of which Dan Aykroyd was a member of, and their clubhouse was located at number 529 Jarvis Street in Toronto. Authenticity regarding vehicles in the film was equally as paramount as with the musicians. For instance, the high-speed run-down Lower Wacker Drive in downtown Chicago was actually performed driving at speeds around 120 miles per hour, just as we see indicated on screen. Although carefully orchestrated, it was still a hair-raising undertaking for the crew, who blocked off sections of the street in order to capture the real deal. The result was achieving the gritty look and frenetic energy that Landis wanted to capture, tearing through the Windy City's underbelly. One of the film's priciest gags involved the Bluesmobile literally falling to pieces all at once at the end of its final run, after everything it had been portrayed as having gone through, big jumps, collisions, and breakneck speeds. The car's dramatic collapse in front of the Daily Plaza came with a hefty price tag. Accounts vary on the exact figure, but it's often cited as the single most expensive prop piece in the movie, costing around $100,000 to achieve. However, for an over-the-top comedy, that moment of total mechanical surrender was worth every penny. Number 6. Carrie Fisher appears in the film as the enigmatic mystery woman character, stalking Jake and Elwood at every turn with one outrageous murder attempt after another. Despite having just wrapped up Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Fisher jumped right into this comedic role, seamlessly blending deadpan humor with over-the-top destruction. She manages to steal scenes with her flamethrower, rocket launcher, and explosive devices, all heightened by the contrast between Fisher's petite stature and her character's extreme weaponry. During filming, Fisher and Aykroyd grew close and were briefly engaged, an unexpected romance that took root amid the film's controlled chaos. Aykroyd, already known for his comedic genius, was drawn to Fisher's quick wit, and the two formed a genuine bond both on and off set. Though the engagement was short-lived, it's still fondly remembered by fans of both stars, further cementing the wild, unpredictable atmosphere that surrounded the film's production. Fisher's destructive antics became some of the film's most memorable moments, and some of the more costly ones as well. Rigging the rocket launcher scene, along with other explosive set pieces, especially the remote building bomb scene, required extensive planning and plenty of pyrotechnics. The result was absolute comedic gold, though, as Fisher's calm intensity stood in hilarious contrast to the film's otherwise playful and slapstick mayhem. Her presence, however brief, remains a standout example of the film's clever blend of big-name talent and off-the-wall humor. Number 7. It's easy to assume that the most extreme over-the-top car stunts in the film were done with scale models or trick photography. However, while miniatures were used sparingly for a few very brief shots, amazingly, most of the jaw-dropping sequences featured full-size car stunts. Around 40 different stunt drivers tore through the streets of Chicago, ramming police cars and narrowly dodging obstacles in a way that still leaves audiences astonished today. One of the film's standout feats is the real jump over the partially raised 95th Street bascule drawbridge. Rather than rely on effects, the production set up a genuine ramp and launched a Bluesmobile across a gap of roughly 150 feet, making for a white-knuckle moment that was as real for the stunt team as it looks on screen. The sheer distance covered and the slam down of a landing proved that the Bluesmobile was every bit the performer viewers saw on camera. Perhaps the boldest stunt of all, however, came with the drop of the Illinois Nazis' Ford Pinto from the sky. The team used a helicopter to haul the real car high above the Chicago skyline, around 1,500 feet, and dropped it for an authentic mid-air plummet. Cameras captured the Pinto's mesmerizing freefall, resulting in one of the movie's most memorable and breathtaking scenes. Number 8. At the time of its release, the Blues Brothers held the Guinness World Record for the most cars destroyed in a single film. A whopping total of 104 vehicles went out in spectacular fashion on camera. It was an unprecedented level of on-screen automotive carnage, especially for a comedy film. Everywhere you turned, there was another row of battered police cruisers spinning out or stacking up in towering piles of twisted metal. Landis and his team staged each maneuver and collision with careful precision, matching the frantic energy of the chase scenes to the film's lively R&B soundtrack. The result was an almost musical kind of vehicular madness, cars skidding, flipping, and collapsing in rhythmic unison, echoing the film's playful spirit. It's those sequences that never fails to pump up audiences of all ages, balancing intense action and comedic timing like no other. All that wreckage came at a cost, though, both in money and manpower. The production reportedly bought scores of used police auction cars, sometimes for as little as $400 each, but modifying them to survive intense stunts, even briefly, quickly drove up expenses. While exact figures are elusive, many estimates suggest the overall vehicle carnage ate up well over $1 million in acquisition, repairs, and specialized modifications. Expensive, sure, but totally worth it for such an incredible production. Number 9. John Candy's appearance in the film may have been brief, but he stole nearly every scene he was in. As parole officer Burton Mercer, he brought his trademark warmth and playful sense of humor to a film already brimming with larger-than-life personalities. Candy's character kept an eye on Jake Blues after his release from prison, only to get swept up, quite literally, by Jake and Elwood's madcap escapades. One of Candy's standout moments to his many fans is the now iconic orange whip scene, where he casually orders 3 orange whips for himself and his fellow officers as they sit waiting out Jake and Elwood during their show. That off-the-cuff line has become a meme of its own, perfectly encapsulating the whimsical way Candy could take a simple phrase and turn it into comedy geniusness. It's a small moment in the larger film, but it showcases his unmatched ability to add levity and charm in just a handful of lines. Beyond that comedic flourish, Candy's presence helped round out the star-packed cast, adding some SCTV flavor to match up to the Blues Brothers' comedic SNL-based tapestry. While Belushi and Aykroyd barreled through the story with unstoppable energy, Candy provided a jovial everyman counterpoint, an earnest officer somewhat baffled by the escalating unrest. His knack for reaction shots and deadpan timing kept Mercer from fading into the background, making him one of the film's most memorable supporting characters. Number 10. It's impossible to overstate just how massive the Blues Brothers set spanned. Entire sections of Chicago were transformed into sprawling, living backdrops for the movie's incredible car chases, musical numbers, and run-ins with the police. On top of the main cast and crew, hundreds, if not thousands, of extras were recruited to fill out the city streets, churches, and ballrooms. This was a film that demanded manpower in a big way, creating an atmosphere bursting with life and authenticity. A big part of that scale being made possible was thanks to the remarkable cooperation from the City of Chicago and the Chicago Police Department. Mayor Jane Byrne's administration was notably open to filmmakers, which meant the Blues Brothers could block major roads for outrageous stunts, fly cars down Lower Wacker Drive at ridiculous speeds, and even blaze through the real Daley Plaza, an impressive level of access that was almost unheard of, even for the time. Police officers helped control traffic and crowds, enabling the crew to capture the jaw-dropping sequences with an almost reckless freedom. These days, it's hard to even imagine a film going to such lengths without running into astronomical costs, insurance hurdles, and endless red tape. Digital effects often stand in for real-life mayhem now, and city governments are understandably more cautious about shutting down major thoroughfares for extended periods. The bold, epic-scale filmmaking of the Blues Brothers, where dozens of real cars get piled up or flung off ramps right in the heart of the city, remains a testament to an era when the impossible still seemed within reach, with the right mix of ambition, charm, and official cooperation. Well, there you have it, folks. Thanks for watching, and make sure to hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw here. You guys are all great. See you next time.